Hi y'all, welcome back to Lives. I think it's time to play a little 7 Days to Die. Where did I leave my bike? Where's my bike game? Oh, there it is. Other path. The other path. Well, I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was last time, maybe the time before that. There's no D&D this week. Two of the guys are gone to a convention. Like a work thing, not a fun thing. And, so, instead I went out and watched Thor Love and Thunder. Spoilers! Oh, I hated it. I hated it so much. If I wasn't like 80 movies deep into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I would stop watching at this point, I think. All their stuff is just getting dumber and dumber, and I hate it. I don't know why they thought it would be fun to just turn everything into a giant cartoon. I don't know. Unfortunately for me, the lowest rated Thor movie is my favorite one. And that was Thor Dark World. And I'm almost guessing Thor Dark World was the last of the Marvel movies to try to have a serious tone. I don't necessarily need a completely serious tone in my movie, but I like when there's my concussion. I like when the heroes have to fight to succeed against the bad guys. And I like it when there's a struggle to... Ooh, I've only got a few bullets left here. And so I found this movie to be unbelievably silly. They're only like... it was just awful. It was awful for me. I hated it. I don't care what the reviews are saying about it. I hated it. So in the first Thor movie, you've got Thor, and the whole thing about it is that he is running away from his responsibility. And and so he has to come to terms with the fact that he is a hero, and there are some, things that come along with being a hero, some responsibilities toward other people, um, and so the fact that he can't just run around and act like, I I want to say playboy. He's basically a playboy, right? When the show starts, but he's not stupid, and so like he comes to terms with the fact that he does have to step forward and believes that the destroyer in the first movie is going to kill him, but he's the only one that can stand against it, right? I mean, it's been a long time since I watched it. I might be misremembering exactly how that went down. But I remember it was a big deal that he finally would step up to go against the destroyer, and like, right, his father was like, you need to grow up, basically. And so to me, the first Thor movie was basically that. Was him stepping forward, stop being the spoiled brat that he is, and um, and be the hero that they need him to be, basically. I don't like that she can hit me so far away. There we go. And so uh, I like the first Thor movie. And then the second movie, Thor: Dark World, I really liked Thor: Dark World. I mean, it wasn't the best of the Marvel movies. I'm not saying that, but I really liked the Dark Elves. I like how they have been, shoved into the other dimension, and now that they're kind of like paying for the sins of Odin, and it's one of our first movies with the Infinity Stone, and although I'm not sure it was originally intended to be necessarily an Infinity Stone, I'm not sure. Maybe it was, but it always felt to me like it was just intended to be the story MacGuffin, and I don't know why I'm running around here half dead. I'm carrying first aid kits, and so but it had a much more serious tone. They were going to destroy everything. They thought Loki died, right, and stuff like that. And so um, it had a bit of a serious tone to it. It wasn't completely serious, but it had a bit of a serious tone. And Thor was a more of a grown up in that one. And but there's some funny stuff. I like the I can't remember what her name is. The assistant is pretty funny in that movie. Um, and so I'm not saying the movies can't have some humor to them, I, but then I think the third movie was Thor Ragnarok, and I hated Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok became one of my least favorite Marvel movies, which is really disappointing because Thor and Thor 2 were some of my favorites. And like, I liked Iron Man 1 and 2, and then I thought Iron Man 3 was terrible. I liked the Avengers movies. Um, and I liked the first Hulk movie. Has there only been one Hulk movie? And then And then Thor Ragnarok comes out, and everybody seems to love that movie, and I hated it. I thought it was silly. I didn't understand why Thor, who they had spent all this time developing him into the the hero, um and then they suddenly, like, in just a couple of movies, regressed him to being an idiot whose only purpose is to swing his hammer. Like, he completely gives up on any semblance of growth in the Avengers Marvel universe and just becomes this moron who wanders around and smashes things. And I don't understand why they thought that was the direction they needed to go with him. And Thor Ragnarok was just nonsense. It was basically a cartoon that they happen to have sort of an apocalypse in, but it was such a tiny side story thing that it didn't matter. I mean, sure that they lost Asgard, um, but I couldn't stand the rest of it. I get that some of it comes from the comics, but just because your comics are silly and stupid doesn't mean you need to bring the silly and stupid to a series that wasn't necessarily being silly and stupid. And like, I couldn't stand. I really like Carl Urban, but I couldn't stand his character in that movie with the two machine guns. And he, like, named them and stuff, and he's like this weird character that's, like, laying around in Hemdall's chambers, and he's supposed to be in charge of the Rainbow Road and stuff, and I'm just like, and then they did all that stuff with Hulk and Thor on that planet, and then Valkyrie's there, and it was just silly. It was just silly, and I didn't understand why it had to be silly. I mean, I knew why they made it silly. I didn't. I guess it's not that I don't understand why they're making it silly. To me, there's a distinct line of movies that were made pre Guardians of the Galaxy being released, and movies made after Guardians of the Galaxy released. And outside of a couple of the movies outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, um, most of the movies before Guardians of the Galaxy had humor in them, but they also followed a heroic journey. The struggle to overcome whatever it was that the movie was about. And then after Guardians of the Galaxy, and don't get me wrong, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is great, but Guardians of the Galaxy is not a story of the established Marvel heroes. It was a different team, and they didn't stop being their uh, criminal selves necessarily. Uh, oh wait, that's not what I wanted to see. I thought it said, "Do you have a special job?"
If you want work from it's a deal.
There we go. We'll go see what's at the next. I assume this is gonna take me to a new one. You're not just gonna take me back to the one I've already been to, are you? Which way am I facing? Okay, no, it is a brand new one. Cool. So, I was disappointed, and then from that point on, they just got dumber and dumber with Thor, and so he's not even the same character anymore. And I despised the Fat Thor joke they had going. I thought that was stupid. I didn't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense for the character to turn into that. Um, and I mean, he might as well be the Hulk. Is that why the Hulk doesn't fight anymore? Because they don't need him to? Because they've got Thor Hulk instead? Stupid just wants to smash things. Doesn't doesn't ever have any character growth. Is that what's going on? Uh, and uh, so yeah, so I mean, you get to the last couple Avengers. What is it? Avengers. I can't remember the name of the movie. Whatever the Avengers movie is, he goes after Thanos. Thanos kills Loki. And all that, and then after that, he winds up living in a seaside town. I mean, which is New Asgard on Earth, but he winds up living with that rock guy, and I hate that rock guy so much. It's the dumbest character, and I don't understand why it has to be in the movie. I mean, I understand why they put it in the movie because they think silly is the way to go, and apparently silly is the way to go. And I just need to give up on Marvel because it's never going to be decent movies ever again, um, as far as I can tell. Moon Knight was pretty good. I liked Moon Knight. I hated WandaVision. I hated Strange 2 because it was basically just the conclusion to WandaVision. My problem is that the movies have lost the plot, and there's no reason for the things that are happening to be happening half the time, and so I mean, it's not just introducing a new storyline. Like, the characters don't act like the characters should act. And then they do really stupid things that you think they'd be smarter than that by this point. But anyways, so and the Black Widow movie was atrocious. Talk about a movie that doesn't follow the character at all, and so we get to Love and Thunder, and from the beginning of that movie, it was dumb. Uh, I liked the idea of this setup. So, if you haven't seen a trailer for it or anything, here's where I guess the spoilers start. Love and Thunder is a movie about. I don't know how to tell you what the movie's about. There's a guy in it, anyways, that seems to be the point of the movie, but he has such a small part in the film. I don't know what I. There's not a point to this movie, honestly. And I mean, I guess technically, you've got Christian Bale. All right, Christian Bale's the air quote bad guy for this movie, and but he's like a Scooby Doo villain, and so he's in the desert. It's him and his daughter. She dies. We'll guess dehydration. And then he buries her, and then he's crying on her grave, and then he looks up and he sees in the distance in the desert greenery. And so he goes to the greenery, and he finds his god. And he stumbles through the water that's in the oasis, and he cuts his hand on this sword, and then he sees some fruit and he starts devouring the fruit. Now, I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? That he completely forget that his daughter's dead. He sees that his god is there, and instead of begging the god to do something about his dead daughter, he's just gonna eat fruit. And so then, like, I'm not even sure he mentions his daughter, which is bizarre because that turns out to be the thing at the end of the movie. So I don't know why there wasn't more of an emphasis on the fact that he was trying to get revenge for his dead daughter. But no, he has such a small part in the film that you don't ever really get much of anything from this character. He he's angry. The god tells him that there's no point to his life, and then the god is going to kill him because he says he renounces the god. And then the sword flies into his hand, and he stabs the god. And so that's the bad guy. He's a god killer. And so apparently from that point on, he goes around the universe killing gods. Um, the problem is nobody cares. Nobody cares that he's killing gods. And so then eventually he then they jump over to Thor. Thor's hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's upset. And the whole time you've got the Rock guy. I don't remember what his name is. Um, I can't pronounce his real life name either. I know I've heard it a few times, but I'm terrible with names to begin with, and his name is not a standard name that I'm familiar with. It's what it's. I don't even want to try to say his name because I know I'm going to butcher it. But he plays the Rock guy, and he's the writer and director for this film. Which I hated his character in everything so far. So it's great that his character now is like super important to narrating the whole film because everything is just silly, Eh, like super cartoony silly, and so he's narrating what's going on, and basically, uh, Thor is heartbroken because Jane Foster left him. I guess. I mean, it was, as they mentioned in the film, 8 years ago, and there was no caring at any point, as far as I could tell. Um, but now he's super sad, and so he just wants to sit around and meditate after getting his god bod, as they call it, back, and and so waiting for them to say that they need him to fight, and so they need him to fight, and so he goes and he helps them, and here comes the. Now I thought the part with Christian Bale and the God was a little weird, especially when the God is like, "You're a silly mortal, ha 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 ha. There's no point to your life. You mortals are only here to suffer and worship us, ha 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 ha." And then throws a fruit rind at him and stuff, right? And I'm just like, okay, this is dumb. I hate this. I hate this guy. But then he dies, so it's not so bad. But he's kind of like, have you ever seen the Muppet Christmas Carol? He's kind of like the ghost of Christmas Present. Big and loud and dumb. So then, it's nice. There's a giant bear where I need to go. So then, or a cougar, take your pick. It's horrible every direction, apparently. Uh, so then he does some fighting, and then they give him two giant screaming goats. You know those goats that scream? Well, obviously that's funny, right? And so we're gonna give Thor these two giant screaming goats, and then eventually when they open the
traveler.
get back on board the I don't remember what the Guardians of the Galaxy ship is called. They get back on board the ship, and the goats are like just screaming over and over, because that's funny. And and so
Well earned, traveler. Well earned.
got anything good? I brought money. And so yeah, they get these two giant screaming goats, and they look at the requests for help, and they're all over the place. And so then Star-Lord is like, we need to split up. And so he dumps the rock guy, Thor, and the two screaming goats back onto the planet. And then Thor uses the Rainbow Road to go on his way. So there wasn't really a point. Do I know how to make this? I feel like I know how to make this. So there wasn't a point for him to be in there. There isn't a point for him to have the screaming goats either. Apparently I don't have it, because when I click on this, you can see. I'm gonna buy this book. And I'm gonna buy this recipe as well.
Y'all come back now.
And so, yeah. Anyways, the dude shows up when he goes back to New Asgard. Jane Foster goes to New Asgard as well, and the hammer, which is in pieces, pulls itself back together and makes her into the new Thor. And so he gets back to town, and the bad guy attacks. Only now he's got shadow monsters, because, you know, why not? And so now that he's got shadow monsters, he wants to kill all the Asgardians. Sort of, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? This is where I get a little confused, because I thought his whole point was to kill off all the gods. If he considers the Asgardian gods, then I don't understand why he takes all the children in a large group with him, because they are, in fact, Asgardian gods. Yeah? So why isn't he just butchering them? Who knows? And so he takes off with them. Why? We don't know. And then that's when Jane, Thor sees Jane for the first time. And then they spend the rest of the movie being like awkward teenagers in love. Only not just Thor and Jane. Thor and his hammer and his axe are like a love triangle in this movie. And Thor is like so upset that the hammer is now with Jane. And he's like trying to woo it back to him, while trying to, every time he does, and he realizes the hammer's there. Like there's, and so he's like, no, it's okay, Hammer. I'm not cheating on you, Hammer. I love you, Hammer. Not Hammer, Axe. I love you, Axe. We're the best together. I just, I was calling for you, when he tries to summon the hammer away from Jane, and instead the axe slowly moves its way out from behind him and comes back over to where he's at. And I'm just like, this is nonsense. It's not even funny. And then, I mean, that goes on most of the movie, him trying to woo the hammer back to him. And then they got the screaming goats, which are now attached to this Viking ship looking thing. And so screaming goats are pulling them around because screaming goats can fly now. And and then they they go to see the gods because they want an army to help them try and hunt down the bad guy. And when they go to talk to the gods, they're led by Zeus, and Zeus like blasts Thor's clothes off so he's naked, and he's got like all these terrible tattoos on his back now, like a broken heart, Loki's name, stuff like that. But when he does it, all the goddesses around him faint from seeing a naked Thor. And then later, when he puts clothes back on naked Thor, all the goddesses look really disappointed that, you know, Thor had to put his clothes back on. Jane and Valkyrie are there, and they just lean over and apparently brought popcorn with them to eat while they're gazing on naked Thor. And oh. And then they finally get to the toward the end of the movie, and Valkyrie gets hurt. Jane is sick, because that's one of the plot points in the movie is that Jane is dying from cancer, and um, and so when she has the hammer and she's Thor, she doesn't feel it. But if she's Thor, then the medicines that would keep her alive don't work, I guess. And so she has to decide between being Thor or letting the medicine try and work. And so uh, Thor ends up with all the kids by himself against the bad guy and his shadow monsters. So Thor gives all the kids weapons and then gives them some of his power, and then has the children fight the shadow monsters, which includes a scene where a little girl with a bunny rabbit is spinning in circles while lightning is shooting out of the stuffed bunny rabbit's eyes into the shadow monsters. And then right, Jane comes back and they beat the bad guy. Only apparently the whole thing had nothing to do with the sword and him killing gods. Instead, he was trying to open the gates of eternity so that he could wish away the gods. And so they open the gates of eternity. He gets inside. Thor stops him from wishing away the gods or whatever his plan was. I don't think it ever got revealed. By telling him that he should choose love. And so then Jane is no longer Thor, and so she dies from her cancer while Thor is holding her at the place where he tells the other guy to wish his daughter back. Does he wish Jane back? No. She turns into gold dust and blows away like his father did. And then the bad guy wishes back his daughter, only he dies because he's mortal and he's only been kept alive by the sword all these millennia. And, or however long he's been hunting gods, I don't know. They don't really tell you. And, yeah, and then that was, and so then Thor winds up with the girl. And now him and the little girl are traveling the galaxy fighting monsters. And they are known as Love and Thunder. And that's why it's called Thor, Love and Thunder. Yeah. And, there's like a part where, the rock guy gets killed by Thor. No, sorry, not Thor. The rock guy gets killed by Zeus. And he's like, oh, look, just realized that the only part of my species that's alive is our mouth. And so then Valkyrie picks up his face, which is the only part that's left whole, and ties it to the back of her head with her hair. And so she fights with that dude's face on the back of her head, just constantly talking the nonsense that that character talks. I don't get it. It was awful. I don't know why it's got such great ratings. Uh, I mean the actual like no, it's got like over a 70% rating. When I checked earlier, and I couldn't find a single bad critic review of the movie. None of it's good. The worst I saw was it was kind of shallow. It wasn't just kind of shallow, it was cartoony and silly. And at no point should a series of movies like Marvel have cartoony and silly. Funny? Sure. Uh Maybe like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, they got some pretty funny gags going in that one, sure. But this is super cartoony. This is like a parody movie. This is like if they were sitting down to make a scary movie version of Marvel is what this felt like. I hated it. I hated it so much. It is now the worst Marvel movie on the list for me. I can't remember exactly which one was in that place before. I know for the longest time it was Iron Man 3. I really liked Iron Man 1 and 2, and then Iron Man 3 has got like 45 minutes of Tony Stark sitting in a garage crying about how he had to be a hero one time to an 8-year-old because, it's hard to fly with my, super robot suit and take a nuclear bomb in through a portal and then get caught by my colleagues as I fall back through. That's just so traumatic that I have to cry to an 8-year-old. None of the rest of it mattered, just the fact he had to fly that bomb through. But yeah, Yep. So that's my take on Thor: Love and Awfulness. All right, with that, be brave in small things. Oh, look, I just got concussed and almost can't climb my ladder. Lean to the light, and I will talk to you later.